A whiff of the lynch mob. Bankers are being bludgeoned by politicians, but is it their own fault? Is the system itself to blame? Reuters Breakingviews editor Hugo Dixon thinks it is, and joins me now with today's op-ed column. Hugo, I know you know a lot of these guys, but you don't for one second feel sorry for them, do you?
Look, I think that the lynching that Stephen Hester got last week was probably a bit over the top. But I think that, in a sense, the point of my piece is to sort of pull away from the specific and look at the system, because I think that the problem is that the problem is that the banking industry still enjoys these heads I win, tails you lose bets.
Right. Okay. So this idea that they got us into this mess, therefore we can't feel sorry for them. That's too simplistic, as you say in your piece. The point is the system. It's been rigged in their favour. By who? And who can change it, and what does the new system need to look like?
Okay, I mean, the rigging I suppose works on two levels. I mean, there's the micro level, which is how individual bankers get paid. And that's to do with, particularly mainly with the traders. And that's, you have a bet, it works well for you, you make a fantastic bonus. The next year you lose all the money and you say, oh, sorry, mate, I'm not giving you the money back. Now, that is in the process of being changed. We've got, paying more in equity rather than in cash, allowing for clawbacks and so on and so forth. So that's what I call the micro level. The macro level, though, is much more serious, I think, than the micro level. And the macro level is basically the problem is that they've been over-leveraged, these banks, and when they get into trouble, they get bailed out.
And the macro level, the real macro level is and it's something we talked a lot about in Davos, is the model of capitalism as we know it doesn't seem to be working anymore, right?
Well, I think my own view is that there actually isn't anything wrong with the free market. The problem is that we haven't had a free market, and part of a free market is the freedom to fail. And where you've got this the core problem in the capitalism and the core problem in banking and the core problem therefore in bankers' bonuses is that banks are still not free to fail. And therefore you have this asymmetry. In the good times, they leverage themselves up and they pay themselves fat bonuses. In the bad times, they still get bailed out, and then maybe they have one, even during the crisis, they, remember after 2007, it started in 2007, end of that year, they paid themselves a record bonus. There'd been floods of liquidity from the central banks. Now, what have we had just a few weeks ago? 500 billion euros from the ECB into the banks.
And the system. So are you pointing your finger at the politicians more than the bankers, or whoever set up this flawed system?
Yeah, I mean it's a seriously tricky problem to resolve, mind you, because of the problem that the banks, if the banks go bust, then that actually has huge knock-on effects on the rest of the economy. So they have got the rest of society by the scruff of the neck.
And of course, whose duty is it to resolve it is a key question.
Yeah, well, it is the duty primarily of the politicians and the policymakers to solve this. And the most important thing, in my view, is this so-called resolution schemes that we're talking about, which is, broadly speaking, trying to find a way so that you can actually allow a bank to go bankrupt without it causing mayhem elsewhere. And that is a long-term program, which is, I would say, probably is at least another 5 years before it's ready, if then. And the problem is, in that period, the bankers are continuing to pay themselves more than they should.
And let's finish where we started, i.e., are the bankers themselves aware that there is a flaw with the structure here, that there's a structural flaw? Are the politicians aware of this structural flaw?
Yes, I think they are. And the bankers are clearly aware, and some of the politicians, the more sophisticated politicians, are clearly aware of that. The problem is that technically, it takes a long time to solve. And the bankers are in no mood to reduce their pay in the meantime.
All right, Hugo, you can find that piece on the Breakingviews website, of course. My thanks to Hugo Dixon. Join us for the European edition of Breakingviews each weekday, 10:30 GMT. I'm Axel Threlfall. This is Reuters.